It was a cold, misty evening when the renowned author, Alistair Blackwood, was found dead in his study. The grand manor, set against the sprawling moors of northern England, now held a dark secret within its stone walls. The manner of Alistair's death was unusual. His lifeless body slumped over his mahogany desk, a half-finished manuscript in front of him. The only other object of note was a single glass of wine, toppled over with crimson liquid staining the scattered pages. Detective Inspector Margaret Graves arrived at Blackwood Manor shortly after dawn. The small town of Wyeth was no stranger to strange happenings, but this was something else entirely. Blackwood was not just a resident. He was a local celebrity, a man who had written dozens of best-selling mysteries. The irony was not lost on her that his life had ended in the very fashion he often penned, sudden, inexplicable, and shrouded in mystery. Margaret surveyed the scene meticulously. The room was dim, lit only by the weak sunlight trickling through heavy velvet curtains. The typewriter still had a sheet of paper inside, the words abruptly cut off mid-sentence. The wine glass, tipped over, was curious. She noted that there was no sign of a struggle, yet the cause of death remained unknown. There were no immediate marks on the body, no blood, no obvious wounds. The suspects were limited. Alistair had been hosting a small gathering the previous evening, a literary dinner party with only 4 guests. It was now her task to determine which one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Alistair. First was Vivian Stone, a beautiful but struggling author. She had been Blackwood's protege for years, always overshadowed by his fame. Rumors in the local literary circles suggested she was bitter about his lack of support in recent years. Margaret interviewed her first. Vivian's hands trembled as she held a cigarette, her sharp green eyes constantly darting around the room. "He was like a father to me," she said. "But lately, he wasn't the same. His writing had grown dark, obsessive. He kept talking about secrets, things he shouldn't have known." Next was David Kensington, Blackwood's longtime publisher. David had been with him from the start, guiding Alistair's career from the ground up. Lately, their relationship had grown tense. Alistair's last 3 books had underperformed, and David had made it no secret that he was putting pressure on the author to produce another hit. "It's business," David had said, glancing nervously at his wristwatch during their interview. "But I never would have harmed him. We were like brothers. I admit I pushed him, but that's what I've always done. We all needed him to deliver." Then there was Eleanor Blackwood, Alistair's wife of 20 years. She was composed, too composed, Margaret thought. A tall woman with dark hair and cold blue eyes, Eleanor was the very picture of elegance. She had been Alistair's muse for many of his earlier novels, but rumors had circulated about an affair between Alistair and another woman years before. Eleanor brushed off the suggestion when asked. "Our marriage wasn't perfect," she said in a measured tone, "but we were partners in every sense. I knew what kind of man he was. Alistair kept many secrets, even from me, but he would never have harmed me." Finally, there was Henry Palmer, Alistair's assistant, a young man fresh out of university who had been hired to help with research and clerical work. Henry was soft-spoken and seemed genuinely distraught. His relationship with Alistair appeared to be one of admiration, bordering on hero worship. "He was brilliant," Henry said during their interview, his voice breaking. "But lately he had become paranoid. He kept telling me that people were after him, that he had uncovered something in his research for his latest novel. He didn't make sense half the time, talking about betrayal and revenge." Margaret examined the evidence, though it was scarce. A locked door, no signs of forced entry. Alistair had to have known his killer. She went through the accounts of the evening one more time. According to the others, they had left the study around midnight, leaving Alistair alone to finish his manuscript. He had promised them all that this new book would be his greatest work yet, a novel that would change everything. Yet something nagged at Margaret. The wine glass. Why was it tipped over? It could have been an accident, but somehow it didn't feel that way. The empty wine bottle sat nearby. But when Margaret checked the contents, there was no sign of poison. She noted the peculiar smell of almonds in the air. A faint but distinct odor. Cyanide, perhaps? But why hadn't it been detected immediately? She also thought about the manuscript. It seemed to be a thriller, much like his previous work, but the theme of the story revolved around betrayal, particularly by someone close. When Margaret read the last sentence Alistair had written, it was a chilling line. "And the one who knows me best will be the one who takes everything away." Suddenly, the detective's attention was drawn to a small but crucial detail. Alistair's typewriter was old-fashioned and had been missing a particular letter, the letter E. She had seen his frustration with it in old interview clips. Yet, in his latest manuscript draft, the letter E appeared perfectly throughout. The pages on his desk must have been typed by someone else, or at least revised. Who had access to the typewriter? Who knew his routine, his weaknesses, and his flaws intimately enough to carry this out without raising suspicion? Margaret stood up, her mind racing. She was close, so close. The clues were all there, scattered across the room like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be solved. But in this web of lies, deceit, and ambition, only one person could have orchestrated such a perfect crime. Now, all that remained was to confront the killer. But who was it?